How much is too much? A phrase that should never have anything to do with pizza, but everything to do with guitar equipment. I recently demoed an amp that came in around $5,000, and you guys had a lot to say about that price point. I also recently had a conversation with some of my YouTube colleagues about how videos on higher price gear aren't really performing lately. So with all that in mind, I figured why not have a little discussion about gear prices and specifically what is the most that you are willing to pay for a singular piece of equipment. Let's do it. All right, guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I take all sorts of awesome high gain related guitar equipment I recorded with a simple setup, then I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. But instead of doing that today, I want to have a little bit of a discussion based around a topic that is honestly incredibly sensitive always, but right now it seems to be even more so. And that is the current price of guitar equipment. Now, over the past 4 years, obviously the world economy has just gone absolutely insane, and we have not leveled ourselves out yet whatsoever. On top of the crazy amounts of inflation and the increases to cost of living that we have basically all been subject to, we have also seen some massive fluctuations in the market for certain things. And a couple of those are near and dear to my heart because I personally really enjoy tech overall, but specifically building custom computers. And that market over the past 4 years has been completely insane. But surprisingly, one of the markets that seems to have been very heavily affected by all of the events over the last 4 years is the guitar equipment market. I'm sure you guys remember sometime around the middle of 2020, gear prices were absolutely insane because many people were either picking up guitar for the first time or diving deeper than they ever had due to all the extra time that they had on their hands. A lot of people had a lot of extra money in their pocket due to the stimulus that was forcibly injected into each one of our rectums. Or was that just me? I'm uncomfortable. And all of that resulted in some crazy price hikes on some pieces of gear that had basically remained the same as far as used prices go for a really long time. But the main thing that I am curious about in today's video is what is the most that you personally are willing to pay for a single piece of gear? One of the most frequent comments that I see in the comment sections of really expensive pieces of equipment that I do my horrible, terrible playthrough videos on is simply, I would never pay that much for a piece of gear. I see it pop up all the time, and I totally get it. I also see a lot of people saying, why would you pay, for example, $4,000 for an amplifier when you can get an amp used for like $700 that basically does the same thing? So there are a lot of comments in that spirit as well. So with that being said, it kind of got me to thinking about how much would I be willing to pay for a single piece of guitar equipment. And one thing that I really came to understand, at least for myself, is that price is extremely relevant to a lot of factors. Meaning, when I was younger and much more broke, the thought of buying a $4,000 guitar never even crossed my mind. All the way up until my very late 20s, I actually had really low paying jobs. So the idea of purchasing expensive guitar equipment was like just something that I didn't really think of. I was all about getting the most for my money and going out of my way to figure out what was the biggest bang for buck in whatever particular category that it was that I was searching. And I kind of felt like I was relegated to that way of thinking and that way of purchasing basically forever because I had no job skills and I basically bounced around from one physical labor job to the next physical labor job because I didn't have a college degree and I didn't have any sort of formal training in any job area. Hi, future Kyle here. This is where our sponsor for today comes in, Southern New Hampshire University. Many of you guys know that when I started my YouTube channel, I was working at a job that I could not stand. It was a job that I took simply for the reason because it was the best one that I could get without having a college degree. And it became apparent to me very early on that this was not going to be my career. I was basically just riding it out, hoping to find a better opportunity. But without any sort of degree in any particular field, I was kind of just wandering aimlessly, hoping that one day I would get lucky enough to land a job that paid the bills and didn't make me miserable. So Southern New Hampshire University has one of the largest accredited nonprofit online degree offerings in the entire country. On top of that, it's also radically affordable. So being both online and affordable, SNH SNHU makes higher education a reality for a lot of people that it previously wasn't, opening up doors to career paths that were previously closed. These are accredited degrees and you will learn from qualified instructors. And the courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience. So you'll have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will be there to begin to help you with your job hunt, as they offer post-graduation resources. You may even be eligible for financial aid or have previous college credits that'll fast-track your degree at SNHU. SNHU offer programs in psychology, computer science, cybersecurity, sports management, game development, finance, and more. There's a good chance they have a program for you. So if SNHU is what you've been looking for in a modern higher education institution, visit www.snhu.edu/Kyle Bull, or just click the link down below in the description or the comments. Thanks! So with all that said, I consider myself incredibly lucky now to be able to afford a lot of the gear that I have. Again, the thought of purchasing anything even over the $1,000 mark for the longest time seemed completely out of reach. So now that I actually have been able, I've gotten to a point in my life where I can afford the more expensive guitar equipment, the idea of what I am actually willing to pay for a single piece of equipment has changed dramatically. Whereas when I was younger, $500 for a guitar was like the max that I was willing to pay for a long time. And when I finally got into a job that started paying me well, that number did go up, but not by a ton, because in my mind, I was always about getting the absolute most for my money, even when I had more money to spend. And even with my broke boy budget, I was able to assemble what I still consider one of the best rigs for the type of music that I play, which is an LTD EC1000, a PV 6505, and a Mesa 4x12 cab. But even though there was a time when I considered those items top tier, now in my eyes, when I purchased those items were top tier, so I was actually still looking for cheaper equipment that would essentially fill the same roles as those. Sorry, we are in the middle of snowpocalypse and there's an entire emergency crew driving by. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I didn't want to spend $500 on a used EC1000 if I didn't have to. If I could find a used guitar that I felt delivered the same and had a similar level of quality for 250 bucks, I was gonna go with the $250 guitar.
No questions asked.
Same with that PV 6505. I bought my first 6505 for 600 bucks. But prior to buying that PV 6505, I was looking for cheaper amps that would essentially do the same thing or something similar for a lot less. I ended up settling on a Madison Divinity, which was sold to me by, at the time, a friend, more like an acquaintance, and it had all sorts of issues, so that bit me in the ass. But I mean, that guitar amp wasn't, I guess, on par with the 6505 tonally or quality-wise, but I didn't know that at the time. But for all intents and purposes, it was a high-gain metal tube amplifier, which is what I viewed the 6505 at. So I went ahead and purchased that because I got it for a couple $100 less than I would have been able to purchase this 6505 for. So the reason that I'm telling you guys all this is because I see comments in the comment section of so many of the videos on my channel, because I didn't originally view my channel like this, but a lot of people have come to know me for being one of the guys that review a lot of the higher end boutique and custom and just basically very expensive tube guitar amplifiers on the market. So because people view me as basically kind of curtailing to that end of the market, they often leave a lot of comments in the comment sections of the expensive pieces of gear saying,
I would never spend $4,000 on a Mezza Barba Trinity when I can get a used 6505 for 600 bucks.
And while you may not think that I understand that way of thinking, I totally do, and honestly, I am right there with you. There is really no need to spend more than $600-700 on a used tube amplifier, because there are enough offerings on the market under that price point that basically do everything. And they do it usually 95% as good as the higher end pieces of equipment. So for the vast majority of people, unless they're like a super enthusiast, or even if they are an enthusiast, there is no need to spend more than that $600 or $700 on a used tube amp, or more than $500 to $600 on a used guitar. And honestly, things get even goofier when you move into the world of cabs. But yeah, anyway, so my idea of what I would be willing to spend on a single piece of gear has changed dramatically. I went from never thinking that I would spend more than 500 bucks on a guitar to owning a guitar that I paid nearly $4,000 for. It's not a flex, it's not a brag, it's just showing you guys the difference and how it is relevant to your place in life, because I never thought that I would spend so much on a single piece of equipment. But that was back in a time in my life when the idea of being able to have that amount of expendable income was just something that did not feel like a reality to me at all. And even once it did become more and more of a reality, took me a long time to shift my way of thinking to allow myself to buy something like a $4,000 guitar or a $4,000 amp. But realistically, I never would have had to shift my way of thinking at all, because I was able to get everything that I needed out of my lower price pieces of equipment. And the only reason that I did spend more money on those other pieces, those more expensive pieces of equipment, is basically because guitar equipment really became, you know, my passion, something that I really loved in life, even before the YouTube channel started. And once I realized that I was kind of buying pieces of guitar equipment for my own personal pleasure. Ooh, that sounds weird. But you understand what I'm saying. I was buying pieces of guitar equipment because I wanted to try new stuff. And for me, it was just really fun to kind of sample everything that was out there on the market. That was when I finally realized, like, hey, I can spend a little bit more on this next amp or this next guitar, because in reality, that is what is driving me to continue to work hard at this point. So yeah, it really is all relevant, but just because I got into a position where I could afford more expensive pieces of guitar equipment, that doesn't mean that my mindset should have automatically shifted. And that's where I kind of bring the question to you guys. Those of you out there, let me know like what your situation is, and then let me know the relevancy. Like, let me know how much you are willing to spend on a single guitar, a single amplifier, a single pedal. What is that kind of like price threshold that you never thought that you would cross? Whether that be a threshold that you have yet to cross, I guess would be a better way to put it, or a threshold in which you crossed and looking back, you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I actually spent more than I originally was willing to back in this point of time when I kind of drew that line in the sand. I really am curious to see how many of you guys have been through a similar journey to the one that I have been through, but also how many of you guys went the other way? How many of you guys have always enjoyed more affordable, more bang for your buck guitar gear? And even though your financial situation has changed a bit, did that change? That didn't change the way that you think about that guitar equipment. It didn't change the price in which you were willing to pay for a single piece of equipment. And that line in the sand still remains uncrossed. So yeah, go down there, leave those comments down in the comment section of this video. This really was meant to open up a discussion. It's just something that I have been thinking about because some of the recent videos that I've put out and some of the comments that you guys have left on my channel, because I do read all the comments. And for this video, I will definitely be going down and responding to some of the comments that you guys leave, because I am genuinely very curious about this subject, how it affects you or your way of thinking about it. And I'm also kind of curious to see what the majority of you guys think about this. So with all that being said, I will meet you guys down in the comment section. If you like this video or this style of video, let me know that too if you want me to make more videos like this, the discussion style of videos. And if you did like it, hit that like button. It really does help. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time. Oh, my knees.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.